Hey, you lovely lot. Today I want to talk to you about the case of Nicola Bulley. It's a really concerning case and it's been on my mind a lot, and I want to get the right information out there and share with you what happened when she disappeared on January the 27th, what we know and what are some of the things that are concerning me, and I'm going to share that with you. But before I do, just make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future YouTube crime analyst videos. So, Nicola Bulley's case. Now, if you're following my work, you'll know that I have been giving regular updates. Why have I been doing that? Well, I want to make it very clear that it's important when it's a missing person inquiry that the right information is put out into the public domain and that the public are given key pieces of information that might help jog someone's mind, because everyone is trying to find Nicola Bulley. So that's why it's important in a missing person investigation to be talking about Nicola with the right and correct, accurate information. So I'm going to tell you about what happened. So 2 weeks ago, on Friday the 27th of January, Nicola Bulley did what she always did, which was take her two girls to school. She's got two little girls, and she loaded the dog, Willow, into the car. And having dropped them at school, she then went down to the river. Now, this is St Michael's on Wyre, which is a small village in Lancashire. It's near the Garston Road, which is a main road. And this was part of Nicola's routine. And she was working, a working mother, so she was multitasking. She had dropped the children off, she was dog walking, and she was on a work call. But what we know is that she had also emailed her boss, and she had also text a friend to organise a play date. So working mothers are always extremely busy, multitasking, juggling multiple things. And she logged onto a work call at 9:01. Now that's important. It gives us a timestamp. It was a Microsoft Teams call, and her dog Willow was off leash. Now that wasn't unusual. That's what she would do. While she was on a call, the dog would then be able to run free and she would continue with her work call. Now, a witness puts her in that area at 9:10. What we know now is that her phone was found at 9:35 and it was found on the bench by the river connected to the work call. So the work call had ended, but her phone was still connected. Now, the things I'm describing are big red flags to me. That's why I took an interest in the case from very early on. And that passerby who found her phone raised the alarm and police were called. Her family were called and police were called. So early on, the police were brought in and the river was searched, and I'm going to come back to that. But let me just circle back to Willow the dog. Now, Willow was dry, so that tells us that Willow did not go in the water. So that's another important piece of information, and the dog was not agitating by the water either, which tends to happen in cases where someone accidentally falls in the river or water and drowns, but that didn't happen with Willow. Now, the timeline of this case is really important, as is the victimology and the location. So I talk about the triangulation. I'm going to talk about those three things first of all. First of all, I want to talk about the victimology. Nicola is a mother of two little girls. She adores her little girls. That's what her family and friends say. She adores her dog, Willow. And she was still actively engaged, multitasking and on a work call. So given that all of this was fairly normal and routine, there is nothing to indicate that she took herself off. So that's the first thing that you would wonder, and your first hypothesis: did she take herself off? Did she have some kind of mental health crisis? And from early on, we can establish that was not the case. And unfortunately, that was something that was looked at and favoured as a hypothesis early on. But when women disappear, particularly a mum of two, we must take these cases seriously, particularly with the victimology that Nicola has. And I have to just say, categorically, women do not disappear into thin air, and mothers don't just take themselves off. So straight away, this should have been treated as a priority investigation. So, and I'm going to talk about the timeline as well, specifically, because it ties in with some of the things that the police have said, which I am concerned about. So early on, the police said that this wasn't a crime inquiry. Well, how do you know when you haven't investigated it? That really bothers me. It bothers me as much as when police say it's an isolated incident, when they haven't even investigated. How would you know? Please don't say that when you're at the very start of an investigation, and the first 72 hours are absolutely critical in getting information out to the public and hopefully locating the person. In this case, it's Nicola. So the police also said that they didn't suspect there was a third party involved. Well, again, why say that early on when you don't know either way? And that leads me on to the police's working hypothesis. Now, in fairness to Lancashire Police, they said that this was a working hypothesis and that they are looking at other things. But Superintendent Riley said that she didn't want to speculate, but she did believe that Nicola had gone into the water accidentally. So that is concerning that that was put out there, unless there is corroborating information, and there may well be. I can't talk to that. I'm not in the inside of the investigation. But what I will say is that Nicola's family and friends have been incredibly concerned that that's what was put out there. They have said that Nicola is a strong swimmer. And I have to say that some of them have contacted me, so I am hearing this information firsthand. It's not just my thought or my view. So that Nicola was a strong swimmer and they don't believe that she was in the water. And they're asking me, how can the police make that public statement without information that corroborates it? And how can they say a third party is not involved without information either way to say there was or there wasn't? So that is a worry. Also, the fact that the timeline, well, let's just think about that. The timeline, Nicola was seen at 9:10 a.m. and we don't know what happened thereafter. So from 9:10 to 9:35, that's the window of time. Now, the police have zeroed in on a 10-minute window. And I can't tell you why they have done that specifically, but what I will share with you is that having worked these inquiries and given advice on many investigations, you go wider. You widen your parameters and then you narrow in. So we know that it was a 20 to 25 minute window of time. And I would ask people to think about that 20 to 25 minute window of time. Now, the police said that she did not leave the area. Well, again, how do you know that? They may have looked at the exit points and thought, well, you can't get to those areas, those exit points within a 10-minute window. But what if it's a 20 to 25-minute window? And what if someone saw something outside that 10-minute window and they haven't called it in because it's outside of that window? Now, cases like this really can hang on one key critical piece of information that's called in, and that can be the point where the whole case gets resolved. So I'd urge people to think about that 20 to 25 minute window. And like I said, I don't know why the police said 10 minutes. I don't know why they're saying that they don't believe that she left the area, because what I do know is that one of the CCTV cameras wasn't working. So again, you can't say emphatically and declaratively that she didn't leave the area unless you have information that says otherwise. But they were early on and still continuing in the first week appealing for witnesses from CCTV images, which tells me, and it does take time to do the CCTV cameras, that tells me that they hadn't cleared the ground from under their feet before making those statements. And in my view, that's not okay. So we have to think about critical information going into the public domain, not sharing a hypothesis too early. What purpose does it serve? That is just pure speculation when saying that it's their working hypothesis she went in the water. There is nothing to confirm that. Also, when we think about witnesses, we want people to come forward who were travelling along the Garston Road. So during that time window, so between 9 and 10, that were travelling along the Garston Road, whether you were a cyclist, you might be walking, you might be in a car, but police are seeking drivers and cyclists who were on the Garston Road on Friday the 27th of January. That's really important. They're looking at that river path. But like I said, the first 72 hours are absolutely key. And now they're doing this work of now scaling out rather than having the parameters wide and then narrowing it down. So timeline, location, victimology all tell me that there's something very concerning about what's happened to Nicola. Now, when we think about the body of water as well, like I said, Willow wasn't alerting by the water, and it took a week before Lancashire Police brought in Peter Fording from the Specialist Group International, a specialist underwater and water search team, and he offered his services for free. And I do want to make the point that the family had to really insist on police 1 week on that they brought Peter in. And I also want to say that Peter did this work for free. That's how dedicated he is. And I'm really troubled to see the online vitriol and speculation that he had some ulterior motive. He was trying to help the family. He was trying to help find Nicola. And he used his own resources. He used sonar, and he searched that body of water where the police believed that Nicola went in. He said categorically he would find her if she were there. And he said that she was not there. And that was on February the 8th. He has now pulled out of those searches. He did not believe that she was in the water. And he said that he would have found her if she were. The other interesting point, and having again worked on cases with bodies in water, is that let's say she did go into the water and the water would have been cold, and now we know through her clothing what she was wearing, a large and a thick puffer gilet, full length, with small ankle-sized Wellington boots. Now, the boots could have filled with water, the coat would have weighed her down, and that body of water would have been cold. So that might have been why people didn't hear screaming, but she would have gone straight down. And therefore, Peter and other experts have said they would have found her if she were there. And let's not forget that the police divers went in the afternoon that Nicola was missing and they didn't find her.
The police in the police press conference, they emphasise that they're pretty convinced that Nicola did fall into the water. You don't necessarily go along with that. Can you say why?
My opinion here is that if Nicola had gone in at that bench, and with all my experience of dealing with drowning victims every year, she would have gone to the bottom or drifted maybe a couple of metres and gone to the bottom. The police divers, who are very professional, thoroughly searched this river that day, this stretch of river, all the way down there with a police dive team, and she wasn't there. The current, there's hardly any current here, and in my experience, they don't move very far. Bodies do not move that far for that time, and it's been dive searched twice, and we've searched this stretch of river, and she's clearly not in this part.
Now, in other cases like Lacey and Connor Peterson, they were put into the San Francisco Bay, and that's an entirely different body of water where their bodies were submersed in water and were not found and did not come to the surface for 3 months. This is an entirely different scenario here. So Peter has said that he is now withdrawn. He's incredibly concerned about the case, and the police are now saying they're going to be searching further out, a 10 to 20 mile stretch and out to sea. Did Nicolas go into the water? I don't believe so, but they have to clear the ground from under their feet. They have to search. And what we know about bodies, when they're in water, they go down first of all, then the gases bring them up, unless they're being submerged and caught under something. And I can't tell you specifically about that body of water because I'm not up there on the scene. But it is concerning when someone with Peter's experience is giving the advice that he has done and said that if she were there, he would have found her using all his equipment, and he has not. And there's no evidence to say she went into that body of water. So again, with that timeline that the police have put out, the 10-minute window, would she have been caught in that water, then drowned within that window of time? No one saw anything, no one heard anything. Well, anything's possible. And what I will say is that in the blink of an eye, an abduction can happen. In the blink of an eye, a catastrophic event like a drowning can happen. We're talking about seconds. We're not talking about minutes. We're not talking about 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It can happen in the blink of an eye. So again, that's really important for us to think about. Now, the other important thing that I look at in a case like Nicolas is what else was going on in the area at the time, i.e. are there any abductions of girls or women? Are there any attempted abductions? And it was actually someone on YouTube, so thank you very much for messaging me, who said that there was an attempted abduction of another woman. And when I Googled it, I very quickly found the attempted abduction of a woman on January the 7th. And it had only just gone into the public domain, the police appeal, with a picture of the man from CCTV who attempted to abduct her. This was in broad daylight on January the 7th, a Saturday. So Nicola disappeared on a Friday. This was in broad daylight too. And fortunately, this lady managed to get a member of the public to help her. And the police put out a photo still of his image and were seeking him. So I posted about that. And within the hour, the police had published an update. And what they said was that the identity of the man was now, he had been found, and that they would speak with him in due course. Now, that concerned me even more. They would speak with him in due course. And why would you put that into the public domain? Now you've tipped him the wink about the fact you're going to speak with him. So I don't know if these two things are connected, but what I will tell you is that people were messaging me saying, oh, well, that's off the Barrowford Road, Laura, that's 40 miles away. It doesn't matter. Perpetrators have cars, they travel, and they may create distance between one offence to the other. So seriously, don't say that it can no way be linked when it's 40 miles away, 20 miles away, it doesn't matter. Perpetrators travel. So perpetrators don't take account of police force areas and so forth. So that's just such a ridiculous thing to say. But I do hope that the police have prioritised that investigation and they are looking at other potential cases. And unfortunately, abductions or attempt abductions or murders of women, and it's not that uncommon. And that is alarming. So just Google abductions of women or murders of women, you'll see that it's not that uncommon. But when it happens with a mum like Nicola, a much-loved mother of two, who's going about her day-to-day, who's messaging friends, her boss, and on a work call, that is what is unusual. That is red flag after red flag after red flag. So I'm really worried about Nicola Bulley. Her family are and her friends are, and they want Nicola. They want to find her, they want her to come home. So that's why I'm doing this video. I want to be helpful to the investigation. So if you did see something, if you do know something, think about a broader timeline, please do call 101, please do call Lancashire Police, no matter how small. It could be really important to resolving Nicola's case. And I am thinking about her little girls. They desperately want their mummy to come home. I am thinking about her family and her friends. You know, it is really devastating and catastrophic when something like this happens. And I'm asking people not to go to the scene where Nicola was last seen. The police have enough on their plate. They don't need to deal with YouTubers and influencers who are going up there to take pictures and do their IG. Don't give them more work to do of having to issue dispersal notices. That's a huge problem. It's disrespectful to the family too. And the other thing I'll say is that this is a crime scene. Now, it wasn't cordoned off right from the start because it wasn't called a crime inquiry, and that's a huge problem. But in my mind, this is a crime scene. The CCTV still needs to be done. There's still lots of lines of investigation that the police are pursuing. So I'm going to leave you thinking about Nicola's children, her two little girls, and her family and her friends. And let's hope that someone saw something and they're calling it in and the police are pursuing all lines of investigation. Until next time, be curious, ask questions, and always trust your instincts.